Okay, today we're going to do some inverse trig. So you got to know trig first, then we're going to do the inverse of it. But before we do that, we have to actually know how to type in some trig into the calculator. So let's do these problems down here. Secant of 463 degrees. Now if you look at your calculator, there's clearly not a secant key on your calculator. So you're going to have to do the reciprocal of this. You're going to have to do 1 over the cosine of 463 degrees. So you want to make sure that your mode is in degrees. Now again, I'm going to tell you, if I go too fast, pause me or go back and rewatch. Alright, so this one and this one, your mode's going to need to be into degrees. So I'm going to click mode here. Mine right now is in radians, so I'm going to go over here to degree and hit enter. And then to get out of the screen, do that. And I'm going to type in 1 over the cosine of 463. Negative 4.4454. Negative 4.4454. Boom. Cotangent of 360. Well, we don't have a cotangent key, so we have to do 1 over the tangent of 360 degrees. So I'm going to go over here to the calculator and do 1 over the tangent of 360 degrees. Oh my gosh, what does this mean? You know what it means? You can't divide by 0 because it's undefined. So this is undefined. Boom. Done with that one. Now over here you'll notice that these are in radians, so make sure you change your mode to radians for these ones. I'm going to write that down. Boom. Mode to radians. So go here, go to mode. Let me quit out of this first. Go to mode, go down here to radians and hit enter. And now we can tackle cosecant of negative 5 pi over 9. So this would be 1 over the sine of negative 5 pi over 9. So I'm going to go over here to the calculator and I'm going to put in 1 over the sine of, oh, what's going on here? There we go. 1 over the sine of negative 5 pi divided by 9. And we did make sure my mode was right. I sure did. Okay, so this is negative 1.0154. Negative 1.0154. Secant 3 pi over 7 would be 1 over the cosine of 3 pi over 7. So I'm going to put that into my calculator there. So 1 over the cosine of 3 pi divided by 7. Boom. 4.49, uh-oh, this 5 bumps that to a 10, so 4.4940. Boom, done. All right, so now we know how to type those into the calculator. All right, so let's go down here and let's actually talk about inverse trig. What angle or angles have or has a sine value of a half? Well, if we think about it, we know that 30 degrees has a sine value of a half. But also, doesn't 150 degrees have a sine value of 1/2? Think about it for a moment. It does. I mean, couldn't I also say 330 degrees has a sine value of 1/2? I could go on and on all day, right? So I could say 30 degrees, 150 degrees, 330 degrees, and I could just keep rotating around the unit circle and keep giving you angles until I die to infinity. So this is inverse trig. When I say when is sine 1/2 and you give me an angle, you just did inverse trig. So we could be here all day. I could go on and on past 2 pi. I could give you an infinite amount of answers. So to contain all this craziness, we use the principal value. All right, so the principal value restricts you, and it restricts you to one answer. So instead of giving me 1 million answers or an infinite amount of answers, you will be giving me one. So when we do inverse sine, if they want to do inverse sine of a positive, we'll stay here, a negative will stay here, and I want to tell you, you literally can't go on that side of the circle. So let's say you have an angle in quadrant 4. You can't tell me it's like 330 degrees. You have to go downward and use a negative angle. All right, and we'll talk about that. Cosine, you are not allowed to go over here. This is where your positive and negative is. For a tangent, here's where positive and negative is. Cosecant, which goes with sine, you'll be happy to know, matches the sine. Secant, which goes with cosine, you'll be happy to know matches cosine, but you'll be very unhappy to know that cotangent does not match tangent. All right, so a lot of people mess up cotangent. Let me say it again. A lot of people mess up cotangent, and the only one that's messed up is the negative, right? It switches to a different spot. So we will be talking about that today too. These are the buttons to hit on your calculator to do inverse. We're going to use those in a bit. But for now, again, this is the exact same thing that I had on the front. It's just for you to copy down onto the top. If you want to pause this and copy it down to the top, pause it. I'm going to keep going though. So solve the following without a calculator. I do want to add in here that I want you to give this to me in degrees and in radians, just so we can practice. I actually think more along radians than degrees because degrees are not a real number. So anyway, so we have cosine. This is the same thing as saying this, just to let you know. All right, these are the same exact thing. So remember that for inverse cosine, you're not allowed to go here. We are using, this is a positive number, so it's going to be somewhere here. When is cosine root 3 over 2? Think about your unit circle. Cosine is root 3 over 2 at 30 degrees or pi over 6. That's it. You just did it. So you put that reference angle in there and you calculate. We're done with that. This is the exact same thing as saying this, just to let you know. So inverse tangent, you're not allowed to go over here. And this is positive, so we'll be somewhere here. When is tangent 1? Tangent is 1 at 45 degrees, so we would put that here. And we would calculate the angle. Well, this is pretty easy because it's in quadrant 1. So 45 degrees or pi over 4. Okay? Cosine 1/2. So cosine, again, you can't go here. This is positive. Cosine's positive in the first quadrant. When is cosine 1/2? A cosine is 1/2 at 60 degrees. Put that in as your reference angle and calculate. So this is 60 degrees or pi over 3. Okay? Again, if I'm going too fast, rewind, pause, do whatever you need to do. Sign of a negative. So remember, I'm not going to keep writing this, but just know that these mean the same thing. Okay, this is the same thing. I'm not going to keep writing it though. So inverse sine, can't go here. The negative goes here. When is sine root 2 over 2, and it's at 45 degrees. Well, you can't go around. You can't go in the darkened area. It's forbidden. So you've got to go downwards. So you would say negative 45 degrees or negative pi over 4, like that. Cosine of negative root 2 over 2. So cosine, this one's one of the most missed ones, by the way. So here's where your negative cosine goes. Cosine is root 2 over 2 at 45 degrees, but you have to calculate this angle. You have to calculate that angle. So if you calculate that angle, that's 135 degrees or 3 pi over 4. And that's a terrible 3, so let's make that look a little better. Boom. Okay? Sign of a positive, so sine you're not allowed to go here, positive goes here. When is sine root 3 over 2? It's root 3 over 2 at 60 degrees. Calculate the angle, so this is 60 degrees or pi over 3. Done with that. So now let's move on to the reciprocals. Okay, so we can't do cosecant of 2. I don't think in cosecants. Maybe you do, I don't. So I would say this is the inverse sine of 1 over 2. So do the reciprocal of both things. The reciprocal of both things. So sine, you can't go over here. This sine is positive. When is sine 1/2? It's 1/2 at 30. Calculate the angle. This is 30 degrees or pi over 6. Cotangent, inverse cotangent 1. Now remember, cotangent's the weirdo. He doesn't always match tangent, and you use tangent to find cotangent. But it's only a problem if inverse cotangent is negative. And here, inverse cotangent is positive. So it's going to be okay. So inverse tangent, the reciprocal of 1 is still 1. So we can't go here. Tangent's 1 here. It's 1 at 45 degrees. So this is 45 degrees. Whoa, what did I just write? This is 45. Why am I writing percent? What's going on with my brain? 45 degrees or pi over 4. Okay? Secant. This would be inverse cosine of 3 over 2 root 3. Now, I don't know when it's 3 over 2 root 3 because we need to rationalize that. So this would be 3 root 3 over 2 times 3 when we rationalize. So this would be inverse cosine of positive root 3 over 2. So inverse cosine, you can't go here. This is a positive. Cosine is root 3 over 2 at 30 degrees. Oops. So if I calculate it, that's 30 degrees or pi over 6. All right, so here's the problem. Inverse cotangent of a negative is always in quadrant 2. All right, so whatever we do, we need to be in quadrant 2. This is the one people miss right here. All right, so be very careful. Be very careful. So we're going to do inverse tangent. And this is negative 1 over root 3. So if I rationalize that, negative root 3 over 3. Okay, fine. Now usually we do inverse tangent, the negative goes in quadrant 4, but we need to be in quadrant 2 because we're literally doing inverse cotangent, not inverse tangent. We're using inverse tangent to help us find inverse cotangent. So when we do it, we want to actually put it here. And tangent is root 3 over 3 at 30 degrees. Well, we want this, calculate the angle. So that's going to be 150 degrees or 5 pi over 6. Boom. All right, so let's do this next one now. So this would be inverse sine of negative 3 over 2 root 3. You're going to want to rationalize that. So that's negative 3 root 3 over 2 times 3. So this is inverse sine of negative root 3 over 2. Again, if I'm going too fast, please pause me. I really recommend rewatching this. Like, these are tough for most people. All right, practicing and watching and practicing is the only way you're going to get good at it. So inverse sine is negative here. Sine is root 3 over 2 at 60 degrees. Calculate your angle. You are going downward, so negative 60 degrees or negative pi over 3. Moving along to this would be inverse cosine of 1 over root 2, which when you rationalize is root 2 over 2. Inverse cosine of a positive is here. That happens at 45 degrees, so 45 degrees or pi over 4. There we go, inverses. One last thing we need to talk about, and again, you can copy this down at the top, is we need to talk about your calculator. So when you're doing this, how you type it in is like this. So a couple of things, they want you to be in degree mode, and it looks like they want you to be in degrees and minutes. So when we do inverse tangent here on the calculator, this is what we get on the calculator. I typed it on in for you. So this is going to be 78 degrees, 25 minutes. So 78 degrees, 25 minutes. All right? We don't have a cotangent key on our calculator, so we've got to end up doing tangent theta equals 1 over 0.2578. So then this means you're going to do inverse tangent. Now this is a positive inverse cotangent, so you're okay. You're okay. It matches in the quadrant. And then we're going to type that into the calculator. And this is what you get here. And again, this is more than a half because there's 60 seconds in a minute. So 75 degrees, 33 minutes. All right, cosecant, there's no cosecant key, so you're going to do sine of theta equals 1 over 1.4632. And then that's the same thing as saying inverse sine of that. And I'm going to type that into the calculator. And then we have 43 degrees and 7 minutes. 43 degrees, 7 minutes. Now down here on this one, this is inverse cotangent of a negative. So when you end up using tangent to solve this, you need to remember to add a pi to get back to quadrant 2. Like literally the calculator is going to pop out a quadrant 4 answer, but you need to be in quadrant 2. So we are going to need to add a pi, and in our case we use degrees, so add 180 degrees. So let me pop this, hold on, into the calculator. Hold on, let me write it the way I'm going to type it in. All right, I'll pop it in the calculator. So this is less than a half. So negative 74 degrees, 21 minutes, negative 74 degrees, 21 minutes, but I want to add 180 to it to get it back to quadrant 2. And this is what I get when I add that 180 to it. And then, so 105 degrees, notice I'm in quadrant 2 and that's where I want to be. 105 degrees, 39 minutes. 105 degrees, 39 minutes. And that is it for today. Until next time, goodbye.